Good Shabbos and good Yantif, Shabbat Shalom, and Chag Sameach. The Torah reading for today is not part of the regular annual cycle going through the whole Torah. So we would have taken the Torah back to Exodus to read what is assigned for today, because today is the anniversary on the rabbinic calendar of the passing through of the Sea of Reeds. Have you ever thought of an anniversary for the splitting of the sea? It's the 7th day of Passover, which if we left Egypt on the first day of Passover, it's about the right time. So I will mention that a few years back, on the 7th day of Passover, there was quite an extraordinary ceremony that happened in Egypt, but I don't think they had any idea it was the anniversary of the splitting of the sea in the rabbinic calendar. They moved all the pharaohs. They moved all the pharaohs from the Cairo Museum to another museum they built. So on the 7th day of Passover, the anniversary of the splitting of the sea, according to Jewish tradition, they had this big parade through Cairo. They created all of these. They took these automobiles and made them look like chariots. And they surrounded each of those chariots with actual chariots and horses. And they were all with all these guards dressed up in Egyptian garb, like you find painted on the walls of the tombs. And they had one of these for each pharaoh. And they took every pharaoh mummy in chronological order, and they had this huge parade through Cairo, moving the pharaohs on the day that the sea split. And as it says in the Torah, Pharaoh's armies went down into the sea, horse and chariot. The morning after the Seder night, so you know the story, Egypt wakes up to the terrible death of the firstborn. And Pharaoh says, "Go already, just go. So we leave, take our dough, the matzah, the bread doesn't rise, we get the matzah, and then Pharaoh changes his mind. Pharaoh's army chases after the Hebrew soldiers, soldiers, horses, and chariots. Soldiers, horses, and chariots. Chariots, the super weapons of the day. Nothing can compare to chariots at that age of military history. The Hebrews flee through the Sea of Reeds. It's not the Red Sea, it's the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds. And even if you question how the sea might have split and let one party through but not the other, nonetheless, the advantage of horses and chariots is neutralized in a swamp or in mud or in water. So the people who are traveling lightly emerge on the other side. And what started for them in Mitzrayim, the narrow spaces, Mitzrayim means the narrow spaces, Mitzarim from the straits. What started from them in the narrow spaces of affliction ends up with them in the wide and wild space of a desert wilderness. The wide open desert where anything is possible, where you can see the open sky with no limits. It's not a surprise that so many mystics go to the desert to see big, no limits, but there's also no guidance. The people are free in a way they have never been before. Responsible too for providing their own basic needs for themselves as not before. And responsible for deriving guidance for themselves. And it is frightening for them. This becomes a source of internal conflict among the people and conflict between the people and Moses. The people often simply want to go back. Just take us back. But They are committed to going forward, somehow, forward to somewhere. The originally stated destination has been the mountain of God, where they will enter into servitude to a new master who is not Pharaoh. Shlach et dami v'ya'avduni. Let my people go that they may serve me at my holy mountain. There they will become avadim to God rather than avadim to Pharaoh. Servants to God rather than slaves to Pharaoh. But they have to get to Sinai first. In sympathy and memory of them, we join with them in our own struggles. We are counting the days, one by one, counting the Omer. 50 days to Shavuot. 50 days we count, as we will a little later, you'll see. We count the Omer, 50 days to Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, when we face the mountain of questions concerning how we might link our lives to the cause of transcendence. Don't think it's easy. Not for them and not for us. But it is the way of moving forward. Some Midrash reads the passing through the sea as somehow akin to passing through a birth canal. What we are reading about, witnessing, and revisiting is the birth of a people forged in the midst of bondage and oppression, who passes through the sea and is reborn into something free, but still an infant, a child, who then has to work through 40 years of toddlerhood and adolescence, wandering through the wilderness, learning how to walk and learning how to hold ourselves up to the challenges before us. And today, no less than previous days, we have challenges to face. We're witnessing the rise of authoritarianism around the world, ruled by religious nationalists in Israel who make it harder to know the true motivation of Israel's necessary acts of self-defense. People being kidnapped off of American streets without due process by a government resistant to the rule of law, and then sent to offshore oppressive camps. We're seeing the unilateral disarmament of all avenues of soft power, economic power, media power, means of influence and inspiration that moved people toward supporting America once upon a time as a means of supporting liberty and democracy. Avenues are opening up instead around the world for the advancement of repressive great powers such as Russia and China. The world is narrowing, and every conventional mode of protest, objection, and speaking out is coming under attack by the full force of government, with courts still unable or unwilling to effectively push back. And in a world where every action has an opposite reaction, at times equal and at times not, it's hard to know where all this will go. But it is not only uncharted times, it's dangerous times. For on the international scene, the realm between countries, without soft power, the only possible choices of response are acquiescence on the one hand or violent force on the other. On the international scene, it increases the possibility of outright war. On the domestic scene, a lack of hope in any of the normal peaceful means of protecting basic rights, upholding free speech, protecting the rule of law, increases the possibility of violent response. Our government and political system is based on checks and balances. The framers of the Constitution literally assumed that people were self-centered and largely out to enrich themselves in money and power. I've heard it said that the American Constitution is a Calvinist document. Calvinist. Calvin didn't think that people were innately great. And the Constitution doesn't assume that either. But the framers of the Constitution knew that to have a government, you had to put people in positions of trust, but still you could not trust them to act fully rightly on their own. Other power structures had to be built in place to keep mere human beings from acting on the basis of their meaner spirits. But when one entire branch of government refuses to acknowledge limits to power, a second branch of government, the legislature, refuses to exercise its lawful, dutiful responsibility to protect its own power, if not the constitutional structure itself, and a third branch of government, the courts, cannot see how to push back with any speed, alacrity, or effectiveness, that leaves the people in desperate straits. Those are some of the narrows of Mitzrayim we face today. This is where we are. Meanwhile, good people are watching their words. People in all sectors of society are avoiding use of the words such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, even though diversity, equity, and inclusion represent exactly what America is and what America needs. Diversity is a thing of beauty, like a garden of many types of flowers. Equity is a form of justice. Inclusion is basic to equality. These are values we all need to embrace, and we must not allow tyrants to erase these words from our lips. I noticed that this year, Jubilee Day in Mechanicsburg is on June 19th. That means that what is described by the Mechanicsburg Chamber of Commerce as, quote, the largest, longest running one-day street fair on the East Coast, maybe the country, which takes place on the third Thursday of June every year this year, is on Juneteenth. Juneteenth, a celebration of the end of legalized slavery in the United States. Something that should be celebrated, the end of legalized slavery. But we know Juneteenth is already coming under attack from the full weight of the federal government. People in Mechanicsburg, all people, should celebrate this federal holiday loudly this year, including in and around Jubilee Day. We have taken one step towards bringing people together to know each other, to hear each other, and better appreciate each other. Since we met here for our last Friday service, we dug out the beds of an interfaith peace garden. We had people here from several churches and from Messiah University for several hours, digging up sod, mixing in compost, spreading mulch, and planting flowers. Already we are discussing plans for more plantings and more programs of dialogue built around the garden here. The programs we create in this effort are quickly becoming more important and more necessary than we knew when we first started planning them. It is a small step, like counting the first day and then the first week of the Omer. But the everyday count takes us one step forward every day, and soon we are at the 50th day, standing at Sinai, and soon after that, beyond Sinai, walking through our journeys towards a promised land. And in our day, we need to start by not losing sight of that promise and start planting and networking. If you'll turn to page 768, and we'll conclude. (768). Something we've read before, but now it sounds different. The top of page 768. So Pharaonic oppression, deliverance, Sinai, and Canaan are still with us, powerful memories shaping our perceptions of the political world. The door of hope is still open. Things are not what they might be, even when what they might be isn't totally different from what they are. We still believe, or many of us do, what the Exodus first taught, or what it has commonly been taken to teach, about the meaning and possibility of politics and about its proper form. First, that wherever you live, it is probably Egypt. Second, that there is a better place, a world more attractive, a promised land. And third, that the way to the land is through the wilderness. There's no way to get from here to there except by joining together and marching. Shabbat Shalom and good Yantif.